Hi, Nick. Good to see you. Today, we are talking about a really important topic for anybody who is retiring in a bear market. They need to be aware of sequence risk. Stocks officially entered a bear market earlier this year. The 60/40 portfolio saw its second worst 6-month period in the last 50 years, with both stocks and bonds declining. So, of course, if you're retiring right now, it presents very unique challenges. And if not handled correctly, you could really jeopardize your retirement savings. And that's because of something that is known as sequence risk. What is it?
Right. So this is one of those things that we talk about during your accumulation phase to your
Mhm.
distribution phase. When you're in your accumulation phase, sequence risk really doesn't apply a whole lot until we start building up those assets. And as we get closer to retirement and into retirement, we start taking distributions, and sequence of return risk plays a huge role in retirement. We've seen studies done in the past where if we have a set amount of dollars and then start taking distributions from those, that sequence of return risk plays a role over the next 10 to 20 years in retirement. For example, the strategy you're showing up here on the screen is $100,000 going in and taking out a $5,000 distribution. And the only thing that we're showing different between these two strategies is the returns. We just flip flop the returns from year 1 to year 15 on here, and it plays a massive role in the remaining amount of assets that are left after those 15 years because of when we're taking those distributions throughout time. So these are things that we're talking about with clients, and what are some of the strategies that we can do to try to minimize some of this risk.
Mhm. I think it's scary to kind of look at that because you really have no control over what the market's doing when you retire. So that's what
Right.
makes it kind of so important to understand. So instead of tapping your portfolio when you retire, there are some other options that you suggest. Number one is turn to your savings.
Absolutely. So we know that inflation's way up there right now, and our savings accounts aren't paying a whole heck of a lot in interest rates at this point in time. So leaving money sitting on the sidelines in cash for long periods of time isn't helping us. We
Mhm.
might as well leave that money sit in our IRAs, in our investment accounts, and allow them to either grow back or continue to grow after we get out of this bear market. But turning to those savings to take some assets from there, a little bit here, a little bit there, but making sure that we still keep enough inside of an emergency account that we're not
Mhm.
turning to credit cards in the long run either.
Right. Right. And second on your list, rein in spending. This is something that I'm always trying to do.
Oh yeah, this is one of the hardest. When markets are going good and we don't have a whole lot of worries, job security is out there. We don't worry too much about expenses. We this day and age we have such an easy access to all these goods and services. We can turn to online shopping. We can show up at the store very quickly. Everything is at our fingertips at this point in time. So reining in spending, is always hard during those good years, but it's some of those things that we need to look at when times start to get tight is, do I need this now, or is this a wish at this
Mhm.
point in time?
Mhm.
Some of those wishes we need to start putting back on our list and allowing, some of this market to play out a little bit before we
Mhm.
go and dive into those expenses.
Mhm. And next on your list is plan for stable income. What does that mean?
Right. So we talk about different buckets and having some short-term buckets, some mid-term buckets, and some long-term buckets. Some of those short-term buckets are going to be things like, savings and money market accounts and so forth. But, we know we don't get a whole heck of a lot of interest, from those. Some of those other things that we can look to are some of these short-term allocations to try to drive a little bit more interest from there, and also some stability of income. One of the big words that gets this big negative connotation, with it is annuities. Annuities can be such a good thing during times like this to provide some protection. Now, don't get me wrong, some annuities are very bad out there, and you've got to do your due diligence on which ones are good and which ones aren't. But long-term wise, what we're looking for in retirement is really that stability of income. And some of the best ways to do it is to create your own personal pension with some of these annuities that are out there from insurance companies.
Right, has to be an important consideration for sure. And last on your list is weigh your Social Security options. And this is important because, as we've discussed before, Nick, the sooner that you take those benefits, the less money you will have over time. So this is a complicated consideration.
Right. This number I always tell people is a moving target.
Hmm.
It's not something that you should just set up at the age of 50 and say, I'm going to take this at X amount of age, at 65, at full retirement age, or at 62, and that's it. It really has to depend on what your circumstance is at that point in time. Some people have retired early, and based on their savings, based on their investments, and other forms of income, they've decided to delay those benefits out. But with changes that have been coming down from the government, with high inflation costs, with reduced amount of savings, it might be more beneficial for them to look at turning those on earlier at this. This is an individual question that every person needs to answer themselves, not based on what their brother or sister or their friend or neighbor have done. This needs to be based on what your individual circumstance is.
Right. I mean, you can't even rely on a computer algorithm for that, which is why it's so valuable to talk to you, Nick, because it really is about, well, how's your health? How's longevity in your family?
Correct.
And there's no cookie cutter answer. So if somebody
Absolutely.
would like to talk through all these options with you, what's the best way to reach you?
Sure. Yeah, they can give us a call here at the office, or they can reach out to us online at icanberryretirement.com. You can find our contact information there, and you can actually just schedule an appointment right there on our website to come in and talk with Luke or myself
Yeah,
at
that's great.
icanberryretirement.com down there at the bottom of your screen.
Perfect. Nick, thank you.
Thank you, Aaron.